Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St. Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 12th of January 2018, we look at syndrome, S-Y-N-D-R-O-M-E, syndrome, with the view being that Vincentians, and in particular the Vincentian electorate, need to change the perception of observers that Vincentians are suffering from the battered woman syndrome. The Cambridge Dictionary defines syndrome as a type of negative behavior or mental state that is typical of a person in a particular situation. It has been said that when the ULP, the Unity Labour Party, came into government in 2001, they did so because the Vincentian electorate was courted and wooed and won over by their leader, Dr. Ras Gonsalves. Unfortunately, and similar to the abused partner who was charmingly swept off the feet, Vincentians, the Vincentian electorate could be compared in that vein. The abuse has been described in a similar way. An online publication, Medical News Today, says battered woman syndrome is a psychological condition which can result when a person experiences abuse, usually at the hands of an intimate partner. Another online publication, Healthline, says that with battered woman syndrome, a woman may develop a learned helplessness that causes her to believe she deserves the abuse and that she can't get away from it. As far as the description of learned helplessness is concerned, Vincentians, you may remember when Dr. Gonsalves used that very term to describe you. It is worth noting that some of the common reasons why a woman or a partner may become trapped in a battered woman syndrome situation include financial dependence on the abuser. That dependence is usually manufactured or engineered or deliberately caused by the abuser. The fact of being afraid to leave the relationship, being in disbelief or denial that the partner is actually abused or the partner is abusive, and having the belief that if the abuser loves them, it's okay for them to take the abuse, and believing that they can change the behavior of the observer. So taking all of those factors into account, the question must be posed whether there is any credence to the perception that Vincentians are now in a battered woman syndrome type relationship with Dr. Gonsalves. To try to answer that question, it is worth giving some examples of things which have transpired over the years. It has already been mentioned earlier that Dr. Gonsalves has himself used the term learned helplessness to describe the Vincentian people. Also, there are many insults that he has dished out and continues to dish out at Vincentians. And some of those insults are made in the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Everyone ought to remember when, in Parliament, Dr. Gonsalves degraded and denigrated one of his constituents, when he described her as indigent and poor and unable to pay her passage to go to Kingstown. And he did that because that individual merely expressed or exercised her basic constitutional right and joined the picket line, the front line, to protest what many have said is a rigged and stolen election of December 9th, 2015. It is worth mentioning here that Luzette King and others were arrested for also protesting for the very same reason. Luzette King suffered the humiliation of having her bare skin exposed to the world during that arrest. Matthew Thomas and Bassie Alexander were referred to as NDP dogs. Women have been referred to as picky head and snotty nose. And the list of insults is endless. In addition to the many insults, the list is also endless of Vincentians who have suffered unfairness and injustice. Just last week, on A View from the Outside, last week being the 15th of January 2019, on A View from the Outside, we discussed the topic fairness. And we mentioned a number of cases to illustrate how Vincentians suffer unfairness and injustice at the hands of Dr. Gonsalves' regime, including the cases of Otto Sam, Bigger Biggs, the late Randolph Toussaint, and Marcus de Freitas. There are many situations where Vincentians are afraid to return to the country for fear of reprisals. That fear is manifested especially because of the way Paul Imott Scruggs was treated. Paul Imott Scruggs is a critic of Dr. Gonsalves and his regime, especially in his many hard-hitting calypsos. After returning home to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for a holiday, he was arrested at the airport and prevented from leaving. And for many months, he was prevented from returning to the USA, where he resides. He was charged, and his travel documents were confiscated as part of his bail conditions. After many months of uncertainty and severe financial loss, all of the charges against Paul Imott Scruggs were discontinued. Many currently fear that if they return to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they will suffer a similar fate. So, are Vincentians battered? Well, think about the many instances of bullying, even in the parliament of the country. Think about when the opposition parliamentarians were thrown out of parliament and were thrown down the stairs. One of those members of parliament, the Honorable Daniel Cummins, the representative for West Kingstown, continues to suffer from the injuries he sustained at that time. Think about how the election petitions, which are to determine the legitimacy of the government, are still languishing in the courts. And remember that those elections were held on the 9th of December, 2015. Think about the sex tape. Think about all the bogus excuses. Think about the dynasty which has been foisted on you, Vincentians, the people of the country. Think about the treatment of Yogi Farrell, the treatment that she received at the hands of the establishment and the state apparatus of the country. Think about the allegations of human trafficking in the country, and the allegations of a group of young women referred to as the Parliament Girls, who are alleged to have to depend on rich and powerful men who are well connected. They have to depend on them by offering sexual favors for their financial survival. Think about all the farmers who, it is said, have been emasculated and made to depend on social assistance or poor relief for their survival. Think about Dougie de Freitas and the many attempts to get rid of Nice Radio. Think about the downright refusal by Dr. Gonsalves' regime to honor the provisions of the Constitution, the highest law of the land, to provide accountability to you, the people of the country, as dictated by the Constitution. Think about how agents are used on radio and on social media to try to destroy anyone who raised the issue of rape and sexual abuse. In that thought, remember how Kate was denigrated for merely recounting her own experiences of rape and sexual abuse. Think about how Michelle Andrews has and continues to be humiliated because of the allegations of rape and sexual assault which she alleged that she suffered at the hands of the Prime Minister when she was on duty as the police officer who was responsible for guarding him and his family. Think about the rally, which is today referred to as the rape rally, that the regime held in support of the Prime Minister at that time. Think about how year on year the budget is delayed without explanation. It is worth noting here that the budget is due by December of every financial year. However, it is said that it has been late on at least 9 occasions. And in fact, it's been as late as February. Consider that the budget for the financial year 2018 is still to be held at this time. Think about the shambolic treatment of the trade unions, and in particular, the trade union, the teachers' trade union, and the public service union, who many say assisted Dr. Gonsalves to get into government. Think about what a member of the regime said openly, that justice in St. Vincent and the Grenadines has two faces. Think about those who have been used to spread propaganda that although things are bad under Gonsalves' regime, better cannot be done. One will say, that the list of examples is endless. It is no secret that many Vincentians are living in fear of Dr. Gonsalves and the regime in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Many are afraid to speak out on critical issues such as healthcare, safety and security, the escalating crime rate in the country, which are affecting them personally. They're afraid of, especially of victimization, and especially so if they are perceived not to be supporting the government. Many are afraid to speak out about the abuse, the unfairness, the injustice, which they know and see are meted out to others. They're afraid to speak out for fear that they themselves will suffer in a similar way. Many feel trapped and believe that they have no alternative but to take the abuse which is dished out at them. Just feel trapped, just like a woman in the battered syndrome relationship feels. It is because of all of the issues mentioned above and more why there is the perception that Vincentians are in a battered woman syndrome type relationship with Dr. Gonsalves and his regime. It is believed that just like a battered woman who is afraid to leave the abusive partner, Vincentians seem afraid to leave Dr. Gonsalves and his regime. It is that belief, which some say has led the Calypsonian Demand Age to compose the song, It's the People. In that song, the Man Age is saying the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are to blame or are to be blamed for staying in a bad relationship. On a view from the outside, we say to you that there are many examples of women who were in a battered syndrome type relationship and who finally summed up the courage and left because they couldn't take the abuse anymore. We say, just like those women got rid of that syndrome, Vincentians, you too can sum up the courage and leave. One battered woman who summed up the courage and got herself out of that type of syndrome said, you will feel so much better by taking your life back. Another woman said, you can build a brighter future. You can grow, and your children will grow, can grow and learn also. Vincentians, take heed. Think of your future and rid yourselves of the syndrome. Until next week, Randy and all of the listeners, this is Brereton Horne on A View from the Outside, with a reminder to send feedback as usual to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. That's aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. Have a pleasant Saturday. Have a wonderful